Thank you.
Okay, let's discuss certification. Can we explain certification? I can start. Certification by a certifying body right now is RID. There's also BEI. There's also NAD. All three of these organizations provide certification. So that would be, and the difference between licensure, it's at a national level mostly. I know BEI, there's a limited number of states right now that accept BEI, but I understand that that's increasing. So I think differentiating between at the state level and the national level is important, because I don't want to force people to be involved with RID if they don't want to be involved. Like I said, it's a financial obligation and not everyone is earning enough to do that. So I think it's important to separate certification at a national level versus licensure at a state level.
And to be clear, we're not including EIPA as a certification, right?
No, I feel strongly about EIPA. It's an assessment, it's specific language, it's specific level, it's specific content. I do not want to include that, no.
Okay.
I agree. That's more focused on education, not generalized for generalized interpreters. I feel the same about certification, and also adding that layer of national certification. They handle our CEUs, our certification level, yes, but a state level, there's not the monitoring that we need to make sure people are following. So certification is important to show standardized of skill, I guess, and having an ethical standard. But I agree with Megan that this is just an extra added layer of protection.
And something else I want to add too, RID has the CPC. So piggybacking from RID to the state level, I think will be important, because if we can borrow that obligation to behave ethically, it's important. You can't see me. Oh, McKenna, did you say something? Sorry, I missed that. Yes, I think it is important to develop standards. If we can't generalize nationwide, we're going to have to set up standards for all interpreters to behave ethically. And I do not think I got all of that. So if anybody has ads, please. I am not proud.
She was saying in the state of Tennessee. That was the one part that you missed. That's okay. If we can't set up standards on a national level, then we'll need to do a state level, and for the state of Tennessee.
Any other additions regarding certification? Okay, now let's talk about the registry. What is that? What does that mean?
So I'm a little confused about the registry. I looked at Connecticut, and it just seems like a list of interpreters and their certifications. It doesn't really specify what they're allowed to do, not allowed to do, whether, like, BEI has specific level of education, and then medical, mental health, legal. The registry only showed certification or not certification. And I think a big difference with Connecticut, when I was looking at the registry, most of them are certified. I think I counted like 93% of the interpreters on the registry are certified, or already have passed the RID written. I didn't see any that were not certified. And I know we have some amazing interpreters here in Tennessee that are not certified and we still want to use them. So I'm worried that the registry might not depict that well. Because even if interpreters here are not certified, they can still become licensed and still be used as interpreters. So I guess I'm just confused about the registry and what that's for, other than we already have lists of interpreters with their certification level or not certification level. So why is that different than what we have? I'm just looking for clarification because I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think the goal of the registry, sorry, yeah. I think the goal of the registry was just was if we set something up, again, temporarily, I don't think that the registry is like the final goal and we get the registry and we're done, like no more, pursuing licensure. I think if in the meantime, because there's no fiscal note attached to setting up a registry, but we can still pass something requiring all interpreters to sign up and have to join the registry. That at least gives us a place for deaf, hard of hearing employers, to look at if they want to just see, okay, I need a certified interpreter that maybe not be on the RID, list, because they may have BEI, they may have other qualifications, whatever. But we require it, and then if Eric has no certification or no qualifications, he'll just say my name, and then for like certification or what it'll be blank. So that will at least sort of give deaf and hard of hearing again. In the meantime, not. I just feel I feel strongly that this legislature is not going to approve anything that requires any money, that requires setting up a committee, setting up a panel that the state's going to have to pay for travel and testing fees and all that stuff. Just with Republican legislatures that they tend to be more business friendly, which sometimes that's great, sometimes it's not. So I think the idea for the registry was sort of like temporarily a place to still require that all interpreters sign up. So hopefully it won't be like Connecticut where you have, when the certified interpreters are going to follow that and you see all the certified interpreters and no non-certified. So you think, oh, then that means there's no non-certified interpreters in Tennessee, which of course is not true, but it will at least require that. So I think it's just sort of like a starting point until we can sort of hit like the goal that we actually want.
One question that I have for that is, so certified doesn't always mean qualified, and so I guess could the registry have a place with specific other qualifications or like niches? For example, like the RID registry has a column where it says what kind of interpreting do you do? So is that something that we could add to the registry if that is a temporary solution?
If there's no oversight though, then like I could put down qualified to work in education or mental health, and I'm really not. I could put down what I have experience working in, but that doesn't mean that you're qualified. So it may not catch that. Yeah.
And
So-
does that have any like teeth for like, I know in the old draft for the licensure, it said people had to sign like an I don't know how to spell that, affidavit saying, I swear to follow the CPC, blah, blah, blah. Would a registry have anything like that?
Well, that's sort of, so the group and I think I'm getting off them. Sorry, Chrissy. If you don't, if you want to hold this conversation, we can. I think the question was, what was the registry? What's the point? What's the content? Whatever. So, yeah. So I think if, the group that we met really were interested in the registry because the deaf want to see something like now, like they want to see the list now. So there's several of them that are going to be working on what does that mean. So maybe they decide it could be where there's a list of your experience, or maybe there's an affidavit that has to be signed saying that you agree to follow the CPC when you sign up for the registry. For the teeth, I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, again, it's not my goal. It's a weak solution, but it's a solution that we don't currently have now. That our group was really interested in just seeing, they want to see a list of interpreters and their qualifications. And when we talked about the RID, well, you can go on the RID website. Well, like you said, some of them aren't on there because some of them have BEI or other qualifications. So I don't know, that may have muddied things.
Any more thoughts on registry? Chrissy is asking. I have thoughts, but I don't know if I can articulate them appropriately right now. Like, if it's like a pre-step, something that we discussed at our last meeting was that there has to be legislation for that teeth concept. So I have questions about how we find all these interpreters. Like, I'm sure KCD has a list and Bridges has a list. So, I mean, that could be a starting point, but the other interpreters who work independently, I mean, how do we get them to register? And how do we know who they are? Because of rural interpreters, you know, they're often working in isolation. So I just have questions about how we find them.
That's a really good question, because I know of several people who are interpreting, but they're not contracted with any agency, and honestly should not be interpreting because I've seen, but still they're interpreting. Would they be willing to sign up for a registry and then be caught? You know what I mean? And I know they're working in like mental health situations. Like, it's really not a good situation. And that's where a lot of my comes from. So if we're not legally requiring them to sign a registry, they won't, and then they'll keep working in the mental health setting.
Yeah,
Which
but
is
I
bad.
think that's the point of, is that we do require it. We do pass some legislation requiring the registry.
Oh, it's not
Again,
just like a voluntary.
no. It
Okay.
would be working to draft some sort of legislation that has no money attached to it, that would be passed. That
Got
would,
it.
but how do we find everyone? Right. I don't know. That's a good question. I think we could find most, even those who aren't or contracted with Bridges or other agencies. You know, I mean, it'll take time, of course,
Mhm.
but we've had meetings like in like McMinnville, and we've two interpreters that were working there. Both are actually good, you know, just conversationally good. I haven't seen them actually work, but you know, they have some skill. So like, I think it's just going to require just sort of that. But same thing though, like with licensure, you know, how are we going to find everyone? At first, it would just take time.
Mhm.
But I do think it's a temporary step that
Yeah.
that would require legislation that, again, I think would be easily passed, just because there's no fiscal note with it. And I don't mean to say that money is over quality or and again, I am all for licensure. But I do think that temporarily it's something that could, you know, kind of fill in the gap until we get there.
I want to mention
So,
that at our first meeting,
oh,
you said you needed to be convinced, Eric. So I think
Yeah,
that's a step. You just
yeah.
said I'm all for
No,
licensure.
right. So I'm for licensure. I'm not for rush licensure.
Same.
I'm not for Memphis. You guys, there's no one from Memphis here. Memphis is going to be crushed. I mean, truly like crushed, like with interpreters. And I get it. I get it. We have to have the best interpreters. It's for the deaf community, all of that, 100%. We have to be careful too. So yeah, so I need to be convinced how we can do this, that it seems like we're helping the deaf community, but at the same time, we could be hurting them in other ways. So, but yes, I'm 100% for quality and licensure. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Lisa, I
all of
cut
us
you off.
agree with that. Oh, sorry, Lisa.
Oh, that's okay. I just had a question. what I'm thinking about as I'm taking notes over here and I'm writing things down and questions as they come up. And one about the registry is if it's required, there's legislation required, who will provide the oversight? Who will manage this? How will we enforce the law? Who would do that? Because I have a sneaking suspicion that the council is going to be thrown out there. And what we need to remember is that the council is, yes, state mandated, but also an advisory board in general. We are not a commission. We don't have legal authority. So just something in the back of my mind, wondering when you say that something is a requirement, who requires it and who follows through and follows up and makes sure that it happens appropriately.
Okay, sorry, Beth, sorry.
I have a concern too, if there's not someone who's in charge of it or getting paid to take care of it. The vetting process of what people put down and whether that's really true. I would hate to misguide the community that someone is X, Y, and Z because they put X, Y, and Z. Even though we would understand they had signed like an affidavit, I can't even say the word today, that they signed that that's what they were, would the community feel like though we were responsible for ensuring that? You know, that if we put our behind this list, that we would be responsible for being sure that people were representing themselves correctly. If that makes any sense.
Thank you for everybody putting in their information. I see we do have a lot of clarification in that area. And just making sure we all know what that is supposed to mean. And that's something that we can clarify with the community as we go on with these meetings. So now I think it's a good time to jump into the questions. We have 30 minutes left, so we want to make sure we're talking about the community meetings. I know Nashville just hosted their meeting. Eric, do you remember the questions that were shared during that meeting? And then the next one, I believe, is the Johnson City, and that's on the 29th of this month, I believe. I see you nodding your head, so that's good. So I know Knoxville is going to have one on September 23rd, and we will have a meeting in Chattanooga on the 18th. And so I'm going to try to go to both of those. And I'm not sure if Memphis has a date set yet. Eric, do you know if Memphis has a date set? Jackson, I'm not sure. So that's where we are with that right now. Eric, do you mind, what kind of questions were asked at the Nashville meeting, if you don't mind starting off that discussion?
Yeah, I was trying to find that document that we used, but I don't want to like take up our time. I'm just going off my memory. I remember, you know, one thing was like, what is licensure? Because we wanted to make sure like they understood what it meant. Like there was like that there wasn't a confusion between licensure and certification. So we just asked like, what does licensure mean to you for interpreters? And then so that was one question that we asked. And then and then we had a robust discussion about what that was. Is that the only way to solve the problem with Tennessee not having any type of process for interpreters to be qualified or I don't know what that word is, like vetted, I guess. Vetted
Stamp of approval.
It's a stamp of approval, right? To work in the state. And then I mean it was a lot of discussion. It was just a lot of discussion, and it was a lot of allowing them to ask questions also. And then one deaf person actually stood up and just said, is there any way that we could do just sort of like a list? And that's where the registry idea kind of came out during the meeting on its own. We did not propose that. And then we asked, just for bridges, we asked, is this a priority that you want us to work on? Because we have our our strategic plan already set up with goals, and we asked them if they wanted us to make this a priority. And some said yes, some said no. It was about half and half. Some said like they were fine with the current services, but we asked them to sort of think like statewide, like, it's fine if you're satisfied in Nashville, or we had three or two people drive in from Memphis to attend that meeting, which was it was awesome. So we just sort of really let the discussion lead, but we did want to make sure that the licensure and certification terms were clear before we went on, because there was some confusion thinking that they thought licensure and certification were similar and everything. But I'll keep looking for that actual list, and then but y'all go ahead and discuss.
In Jackson, we haven't planned our meeting yet, partially from like what Eric's talking about, being sure that we're clear on what the terms are, because we want our community to lead the discussion, but we also anticipate a question of, what do you mean about licensure? What do you mean about registry? And so we were kind of waiting a little bit to kind of get a clearer picture. We also we do want our local community represented, but I don't know that we wouldn't benefit from having someone possibly also zoom in just to answer some questions or to get the ball rolling without it looking like we're doing the pushing of the ball, just so that there's a good, because I just think if we just sit down in a room and go, hey, you guys, what do you think about registry or licensure? I think we would hear a little crickets chirping, because I don't think most people would have a good idea of what we were headed towards. But we are very interested in being part of it, but we also want to be sure that we're approaching it. I hate to have a meeting where we don't accomplish even any input because we don't have enough background. We also have a 3-year plan. This isn't currently on our list of our strategic plan, but we can definitely put some resources behind having the community meetings and helping to not lead, but helping to provide, facilitate.
Are these meetings, are they discussing the old draft that I already have, or is that not something that we're mentioning yet? Just, okay. Curious.
We didn't mention it. We did borrow the definition of licensure from the Library Services for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing from one of the groups that met a while ago. But yeah, no, like we didn't show like the last draft or anything like that. We just sort of started from like a new slate.
While we're talking about documents, I know that at some point in one of the emails, I saw the link for the Google Docs, but there has been such a flurry of emails that I had went back to try to find it again, and it's just lost someplace down in one of those drop downs. So if you could send that again, I would greatly appreciate it, because I did try to search for it and I finally just kind of gave up.
Okay, sure, that's no problem. And I did, if I could add something too, I am curious about the definitions that Bridges used for licensure. It helps a little bit with, I'm not sure about, Eric, you said a library group met, and that was previously with the task force before?
It was before, yes. I think it was even before the one that you're like, I think it was before that. We were involved in a big statewide thing, and people from all over the state came. I remember at the library, it was a long time ago, but we had the same discussion, and same and I'll find that was online. That was either on the library's website or notes from that meeting that were posted.
I'm curious, I've had several, and I just want your opinions on this, but I've had several interpreters who anonymously have reached out to me and said they didn't really feel comfortable putting their input in yet. Is it okay for me to set up a Zoom meeting to have interpreters come and have like 5 minutes each to put in their opinions? Because they're just feeling like they're not represented in this conversation yet, because it will affect them. So it would be certified, not certified, anyone to come on Zoom to be able to put their input and compile it and bring it. Just your opinions, what everyone would think about that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well, I mean, does this group need to have that, like, just as a group?
I just mean like, some people have reached out and said, like, going to the community meetings, they didn't feel comfortable putting their input because they're at agencies where they work and they just want to make sure their voices are heard.
Right, and that's
That makes
fine, but
sense.
I mean, like, can this group do that? Can this work group set up a time where we all listen to interpreters from all over the state
mhm,
and make sure that it gets out to all over the state?
mhm.
I like that idea, yeah.
Yep, and TRID
Yeah.
could share with our members too.
I
Good
know
idea.
personally, it was kind of last minute that it was announced and I was out of town. And I know other interpreters were also having conflicts with work related things or off or whatever the reasons were. So it was hard to attend that recent meeting here in Nashville. And so if it's also possible just to have another meeting in general, whether it be the same one that was just had, or like we were just mentioning, like on a Zoom call with all of this work group there.
Mhm. Chrissy's saying, right, I'd like to clarify and emphasize, we're having ongoing meetings within the work group, of course, but we're also going to have community local meetings ongoing as well. Nancy talked about setting up a Zoom session for the entire state so that people who perhaps miss local meetings could participate in that way. In addition to the face-to-face meetings that we'll have. That's a possibility. I think we need more ongoing meetings. You know, at this point, we're just trying to figure out where we go from here. We're all busy people, of course, understandable. And we can communicate within the work group and share with us things that come up or next steps, etc. It would help us, you know, keep on the same page, keep our verbiage the same, and just be standard. Does anybody else have anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I just want to say that I agree. I think that's a great idea, but I do think if this is the work group, I think then this work group needs to, you know, like maybe set up some times like in the evening, you know, and not like 2 or 3 hours of our, I mean, our time is valuable, maybe like, you know, 1 hour from like 12 to 1, have people sign up and give their opinion, and then we just work that 1 hour, and you know, we hit as many as possible. And then we do like an evening and maybe a Saturday night. You just sort of vary the times and just let people sign up. And then we can all, and then that way we're all getting the information at the same time, and we're not having to like
It's
depend on
neutral.
those. It's neutral, right? Right.
Because I think
Yeah.
part of the feeling was, you know, I make money from the agencies, so I'm kind of nervous to say my opinions in front of who pays me. So if this is neutral and everybody can put their opinions and know that it's, you know what I mean, it would be more fair, I think.
Yeah, well, and just to say that, you know, our meeting was neutral. Like our meeting was not like trying to convince people to accept licensure, or we weren't saying don't accept licensure. Like it was completely open, and there were several interpreters there. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think a neutral, you know, again, if this is the work group, then I think we shall be responsible for overseeing that.
I did, but I think I forgot. Oh, I like the idea of varying times too, because not everyone is available at lunch or at 5 or blah, 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 blah. So that I think accommodates and shows a willingness to meet other people where they are. I think it's important to remember if we do that, that the group is deaf-led. I can't do all of those sessions by myself, so we'll need to have other people who are willing to participate in that way. Communication and transparency are key. I'm going to be the main point of contact. So other people within the work group can lead too. We can encourage them to check their schedules to see when they have availability to participate in that way.
And are we talking about for interpreters only? Like not like did you envision those meetings being like interpreters, like we invite interpreters to give us their feedback, their opinions, or a deaf community also? Or are those separate things?
We could do separate groups. We could do either or both. Sometimes people are overlooked where experiences differ. And some people, may not want to present in front of other people. So I'm cognizant of that. We just need to communicate what's happening.
Can we also have a place for people like maybe TRID's website, Megan, where people, if they don't want to do this because maybe they're nervous or same reason that Amy just said, that they can, but I mean, they would have to give their name. I mean, we can't just trust that,
I was just gonna say you could use just like Google Forms, and basically send out an anonymous survey. And have people answer that without names or email addresses or anything, but if you want proof of who they are, then that would be good.
yeah, I mean,
We did send out a confidential one, SLS did, and we got several responses. And me being in the interpreter community, they didn't tell us their name, but just by reading, I knew who they were. But I think the biggest confusion was, again, definitions, licensure versus certification, certifications that will be accepted. There's just a lot of confusion. So I think the meetings with the clear definitions and then allowing them time to put in their input would be really helpful for the interpreting community, just to feel more confident in what's happening with their careers.
And people have contacted me and told me that if the meetings were in the evening, that they want to join, but during the daytime, they're not available or they have work responsibilities. So if we did move them later, I think people would be willing to facilitate conversations with the deaf community and interpreters. So that could be a real, meaningful way for people to participate when they're available.
and I have a question. I know, Christy, do you mind?
Oh,
Your approval, okay. Are we just opening this group up? Because I'm concerned, like, if we get like 75 people join this group, then it's just gonna be a lot of like, what's sort of the vision of this group? I mean, I do think we need like, of course, diverse representation from different parts of the state and all that, interpreters, deaf, all that. But it seems like right now it's just kind of open and like anyone can join. And if it gets too big, then it kind of gets out of control. So is there a plan for that?
we're trying to recruit enough representatives from all over the state, interpreters and deaf people. That's our goal. That's what I've been doing so far. I think we should be safe with who we have on the list right now. So I think that should be okay. We need to look and, ask people if they're willing to set up meetings, and those meetings can be safe spaces. If we have a lot of people, it has to be an area where people feel comfortable to share. The list so far, I haven't gotten any more requests to be added. So the list that we have should be okay.
So Lisa, when they announced at the meeting that there's like a work group now under the council for this same topic, is that this group or is that a separate? Because you said that it's sort of a separate thing. So I just make sure we don't have like two groups working on the same thing.
Right. Honestly, I'm trying to remember which of the two. I know there were two that were passed, I suggested more. One of my suggestions was interpreter licensure. But Megan, do you remember which two passed?
Licensure and mental
Okay.
health.
Okay, all right.
So now there's this group, there's this sort of this other group now. That's kind of, I want to clarify.
So I thought this was that group.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's what, I mean, we have John, Megan, and myself that are all involved in the council. No one else has expressed any interest in joining this group. So it may start from the council, and we have 3 reps, and John being our deaf rep from the council. But no, there's not going to be a separate second group that's only council, because that just wouldn't make sense.
Because the motion was to set up a work group. But this group is already set up and has been, so I was confused. The motion that was seconded, passed, was a same thing with the mental health thing. There was a motion to set up the mental health work group, it passed, so now I assume the council is gonna set up a mental health work group. Does that make sense? So it,
Which
like,
will-
the motion seemed to be like you were setting up a council run or council led group by the way the motion was presented in the meeting.
Well, I'll just be honest, that was my intention, to set it up and then grow with community, but I also don't want to reinvent the wheel. I mean, that would be silly because it's already set up. So since it's already set up, and the first time I was not invited, so I wasn't really aware of what was happening, which is fine. I don't have to be involved in everything and, touch everything. But I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think in the end, common sense says there's already a work group that's already deaf led. Let's just join that one. I mean, I'm happy to, if you feel it's necessary, like revisit that again in November, or yeah, it would be the November meeting, and say, revise the motion to join the already established, but really it's already happening. And I wasn't really aware of what was happening at all. So until, and my understanding is until the council was put forth as like a home for the license. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. We need somebody involved who is going to be, I don't want to be voluntold, So I don't see that the council in general is going to feel this overwhelming need. Now, I have had several people who want to join the work group for the mental health from the council. I was actually shocked at who contacted me and wants to be involved, which is great. And because the task force has been dissolved, then we can start that fresh, keep it smaller, more focused. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but I mean, I see your point, but no, my intention was not to set up a second group.
Okay.
After I realized, oh, there's already one, we just want to have a presence there.
I think we need to look at Memphis and recruiting someone from Memphis. I put down a couple of names. So I'm hoping that maybe we can reach out to those people.
Yeah, for interpreters or both.
Deaf.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and Chrissy said, just let me know if they're interested and I can add them to the group email. Okay, we've got 2 minutes. Any last burning comments before I close? I'm on medical leave. I'm trying to keep it easy. Take it easy.
So I know that you had mentioned wanting to standardize questions for the meetings going forward, which we didn't really complete today, so is that something that we can all discuss? Like through email or like a shared Google Doc or something, or how can we do that moving forward?
Mhm. What I just mentioned recently, I think we've got some good things put down. Megan and I will host Knoxville. And if we all use common meetings, it's just or meetings, it's just a place to start so that we can read the room and see which each community needs. At the next meeting, maybe we'll have more specific questions and narrow down our focus. We're a little bit all over the place at this one, but that's okay.
Last question, excuse me. Will you resend the Google file so we can look at it? And then also, is it okay for us to join other meetings just so we can also get a pulse? Like if we wanted to go to Knoxville or Chattanooga to join those meetings, is that okay?
Yes, we're fine with that in our community. That's no problem. And other areas can make their own decisions about that.
I just want a full educated, like, I want to know
Yeah, I know what you
what
mean.
all want before decision.
Yes, agree. Okay, all right, time's up. Thank you everyone for coming today. And I'll send an email. Watch for the Google Drive and the links, and we'll follow up for future meetings. I did take notes. We will meet with the community interpreters and deaf community, and we'll be able to make additions from there. We don't have a Jackson or Memphis meeting scheduled just yet, but we do have others. So let me know if you schedule those so I can keep up. Okay.
Last, would you mind sharing the recording of this Zoom and the email? Perfect, thank you.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, everyone. Thanks so much. You all have a wonderful afternoon.